All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the first Adobe Analytics deep dive. We're going to kick it off today with Jeff and Damon. Like I said, this is the first ever deep dive, so bear with us a little bit. There's more of these to come. We're hoping to get every month, but at this point, it's probably going to be about every other month that we're going to put one of these on through the Adobe Champions group. So a few things for everybody to know and remember as we go through these. Just basic rules of this. There will be a Q&A at the end. Please no self-promotion. Don't contact anybody in this without their permission. And things might be shared, use cases, a little bit of data. Also, don't share that outside of this without express permission as well, because we're not sure. We don't want to get anybody in trouble or anything like that. This is a recorded session. If you don't want to be recorded, we will put it up on YouTube later for anybody to get to. So if you don't want to be recorded, go ahead and leave now, and then we'll post this later so that everybody can see it, use it, get to it as necessary. Also, if there's something you heard but missed part of, again, it's going to be posted online. So don't worry, you'll be able to get to it. This is part of the Deep Dives user group. So if you go to the user group section on Adobe's website, you can join here. You can get notifications when there are new ones set up or when a new deep dive is about to start. All right. So today, like I said, we have Jeff Bloomer and Damon Hall. They are both Adobe champions, and they're going to walk us through I'll let them get into it. And then I am just the moderator. I'm just going to look for questions, look for anything, issues in the chat. So if you have a question or anything, I'll try to keep track of those in the chat, insert them where necessary, or we'll get through them at the end. But from there, recording, so that I think Damon, you're going to take it over.
Sure. Yep. All right. Let's see if I can figure out how to share my screen. All right. There we go. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's coming up. There you go.
All right.
Very good.
Okay. Yeah. So just a quick introduction of myself. I work at CrowdStrike. Been in here for 3 years and migrated our org over to the Adobe tech stack. I've been using Adobe Analytics for a long time. Around 2017, I think, is when I started using it. Also like to use Adobe Target. And that's a little bit about me. I don't know, Jeff, if you want to, I don't know if you even need introduction, but maybe you ought to.
Oh, I never assume anything. So for anybody who has not met me, my name is Jeff Bloomer. I just recently joined Cardinal Health as their supervisor of digital analytics under the pharma digital group. So still learning quite a lot there, but I'm only there. Basically, I just ended my second week. So definitely still learning the ropes with everything that I'm doing there. So I'll tell you what, as I learn more, I'll get back with you. So I should also make sure that I don't make myself laugh too much. It's fun getting over colds and stuff like that. So anyway, but I've been doing, let's see, this is my 4th year as an Adobe champion. I've been in digital analytics for, quite a while. And I've been doing Adobe Analytics specifically for the past 11, almost 12 years now. So that is my background in Adobe Analytics.
Awesome. Well, great. We're past introductions. So today we're going to, in this deep dive, we're going to be focusing on time comparisons and how we can add clarity to how you can visualize performance across time using Adobe Analytics. As a web analyst, I'm often asked, hey, why do we see this dip? Or we recently released something, why do we see performance going up or down? And sometimes it's helpful to show things like trends in a different way so that you can see visually in your display those differences. And so we're going to go into a little bit of that and then also time comparison as well for totals. So I'll go ahead and switch screens. So here, you can see here just basic bar chart. And again, you're trying to, as an analyst, portray a story. And sometimes that's not overly clear to leadership or stakeholders, right? So by just showing them this, they'll see, the trends, but they may not understand, when did this release happen? So in this case, we have this fictional setup here where there was a promotion that happened at the beginning of this time period, but there was some problem with how it was rolled out. And because of that, we see a decrease in traffic. And then there's a fix that's released when we see traffic return, right? So that's the scenario here. But again, yeah, with just this basic bar view here, it's kind of difficult for anybody who's looking at this for the first time to understand what's going on. And then Jeff, if there's anything, just hop in if you wanted to say something.
No, I'm good.
Yep. So in this next view here, and we'll be hopping between the slides here and the related workspace. So here, we have a problem of showing the visual difference between these time periods when you're using your basic date ranges, right? So here you're pulling in your date ranges, but you notice that for each of the dates, they're actually drawing them up in the same rows. And while that can be very useful for comparisons in many cases, right? In the case here where we are trying to see a visual difference in the related bar chart trend, that's not helpful, right? So here you can see, February is here, February 22nd for the next time period here where the release happened. And then the fix here, they're all on the same line. And what ends up happening is when you make a visual based off of a table that looks like this, the trend is garbled and it's not super clear.
Right.
Also, one thing to note here for later, because I think, Jeff, you're going to be diving into this, is just aspects of this table here and some tips we have around cleanliness so that people who are using your report will understand.
Very hard to look at.
Yeah, it's hard to look at. There's a ton of stuff here. So we're going to get into how do you clean that up?
Yes.
So now, right now, if you were to make a visual off of that table that we were just looking at, you'll see a display that looks something like this, right? And if you use a stacked view, which is the top, you see all three time periods stacked on top of each other. It's not super helpful, right, for understanding trends. And then in the bottom view, if you're not using stacked, it's still not showing things sequentially. It's showing things all together. And so the story is not as clear. So now, if you instead, the trick here is if you instead take your date ranges and you move them into segments instead. And we'll go over visually how you can do this without making permanent segments. But you pull your date ranges into segments. You now can see how these segments are now showing up in a staggered fashion instead. So they aren't on the same row. Also, for Jeff's comments later, notice how much more clean this table looks. He's going to go into those details. But you see here, the date range here, date range here, and then a date range here. And when you look at the related trends, they look now like this. And so you can clearly see, hey, before our release, right? So, and notice the cleanliness around using labels and making sure, that these are properly labeled for your consumer. So you're telling a story that your user can understand. So here you see the time prior, before the campaign was released, and you see that the traffic was higher, right? And then after the campaign was released, you notice that things start to flatten out. A lot of the spiky volatility is now just flattened out here. And so maybe there's a problem. And as an analyst, you find out, oh, yep, parts of this campaign, somebody goofed up their UTMs, right? And you have recommended a change to fix that, right? And now the fix goes into place and you see a return to those trends afterwards. You see that? So this very visually portrays your story. You see it before, you see it during when there's a problem, and then you see afterwards a fix. If you really want to get fancy, you can change these colors to be green here and yellow here and whatever to show bad times, good times, right? If you really want to get super nerdy into that. But that's how taking care of your tables in a very specific way lends to a cleaner visual. And so I think right now, and Jeff, tell me if you disagree, we can go into the next part about comparison, but I think it makes sense to actually pause for a second and go into a bit of what you wanted to talk about. So
some of those technical aspects of how we get to, from that beginning to end piece.
Yes.
And so if we kind of like step into this, down below, and I'm just going to go ahead and kind of walk through these things instead of having to switch over to what I'm doing, to me doing it. We can just kind of step through some of those pieces. So the first thing that we want to do before we even like go into doing the date range things is what you can very quickly do. One of the things that make this hard to look at right away is you'll notice that you've got a lot of mixed things, mixed data that you're being presented with right away in your data table. These are things that when we get into talking about data storytelling, the first thing we want to make sure is that our audience, our data consumers, understand what it is that you're trying to tell them. Because when you come in here and all they see is this, all this gobbledygook, and they're like, I don't even know what you're trying to tell me here, and then they're gone. So you want to make sure that you are focusing them on exactly what you want them to see. So here, notice that there's both the data for the actual numbers. You also have percents in there, and you've got the different little bars in there, and you've got spark lines and all that stuff. So what we want to do is we go if you go to the very top, so you go into visits there, so the actual metric for visits, and hit that gear. You can actually select to remove, starting with sparkline. You can get rid of showing the sparkline. If you go ahead and remove, now notice that percent is actually showing in our already. If you select percent and remove it, so if you remove percent and now get rid of it, now it's gone. And then you also go down to see where it says interpret 0 as no value. This is going to be important when you get into having your bars, because if you have 0 values in your table, you will not be able to have that nice clean, left to right display of your bars with the colors. And we'll show how that actually affects. We'll come back and we'll show you the difference that it makes by not having that selected. But right now we're going to go ahead and check interpret 0 as no value. Now, the other thing that we're going to do is take the check mark out of background, because really that's just noise here in the display. And now you can see it's getting a lot cleaner. The one thing that I wish that we could do that we cannot do is you'll also notice we still have in each column, you can see the date above the number. And the reason, and I'm not talking about the date here, the date range. The reason that you can see the date above each number in the data that's displayed here is because we have 3 columns worth of data as it relates to those dates. And the thing is your far left column is going to be based on your leftmost date range that you have here. So what they're doing for you is they're helping you see what the actual date is from, in each column that you have. That's a piece of information that Adobe believes that you need to understand, so that you can say, oh, okay, I have February 18th, 2025, and the one that's next to it is, the corresponding date in each column, which can be important, so you can do the comparison. Now, what Damon's going to show you is, in order to get what we showed you just a minute ago, is how to swap out the date range for a date segment.
Yep. And so there's a couple of ways to go about doing this. You can either choose to make your date range segment here by clicking plus and then adopting your date range segments and dropping them in like this and then naming them.
Right.
Or alternatively, you could define your date range up here. And let's say I wanted to make a date range like this and apply it. Okay. And then you can drag that into here and adopt this as your segment. The difference is that in one case, you're making a segment that other people can see and use potentially later. And in another case, it's temporary just for this report. But that's not something that's overly visible. The ability to drag a date from here into a segment is not something that's commonly known or practiced, but very helpful in the case where you don't want to create segment bloat in your org. I'm paying for that right now myself, where we're going through and deleting segments that really should not have been made beyond a specific report. And now we're going through and cleaning a lot of that up. So if you want to save yourself that pain, that's a way to do it. But now you see where we've done this. Now, if you look at these segments and you pop them open, you hit the pencil and take a look at them. These segments are date ranges nested within a segment, and you could name it whatever you want. In fact, instead of release 1, you could say prior to the release, and save it. And now you can see that here, and that will then absolve you of needing to relabel things here. You can just do it through the segment, right? And so you could change them each this way. Notice how this table is, to Jeff's point, much more clean. There aren't zeros in here. There aren't totals. We could even go above and beyond here and remove the bar, background to really keep it simple, right?
Yes.
And even more than this, depending on your stakeholders, you may omit the table completely and just show the bar trend depending on who it is you are working with.
Right.
They may or may not want to see this.
And you do that from your chart, of course. You go ahead and
Yes.
you actually make the visibility of the chart, go from the chart and you just say, get rid of your data source.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's what you'll end up doing. And then
Yes.
you have your nice chart there.
Yep, definitely. Yep. And so this is the view that you can make. And then if you have somebody who's savvy enough to understand the table, then you can keep the table in here. We have it here so that you can see visually what it's doing to the data. So versus up here where you have things next to each other like this, you now have things staggered. And that's what putting them into a segment does for you, is it has it staggered by time versus set side by side in this manner. So
now let's blow their minds just one more time.
Sure.
Let's change that from day to week.
Yes.
And look what just happened to that bar chart.
Yep. See, now you can see the combined time periods here. So depending on how you want to look at this, you could either keep it separate in days, but then you have to be super conscious of the time periods you're observing, right? The before and after time periods.
Exactly.
Or you can merge it like this and see it by week. And you may want to see that. You may want to see how that looks, right? And where the cutoff overlap is. So this is less of a right or wrong and more of a what do you need and what are you looking to show. And so that's something that Jeff and I thought, was really neat to be able to see it in those two different ways. And it's, again, contingent on the time period you're observing by chunks, days, weeks, months. I've used this technique many times for either when major releases are happening or there's a spike in weird traffic or some incident happens and you just want to understand before and after when something has occurred and transpired. This visual is very helpful to portray to the organization what's going on. You literally could just copy this and slap it straight into the deck or correspondence that you're using as is, and it's pretty clear. So I think now what we can do is move over to direct comparison of total numbers. So here we've been looking at how do we make the trends look better, right? Like how do we make the trends more clear? Now we can step into how do we use those same time periods and compare them against each other in a visual way. So in this case, the metric that I'm using is a daily visit average metric. If you pop into the related table right here, you can see that the daily visit average is constructed in this way. Okay. Where you are using the round metric function and you're pulling in approximate distinct count. This is what the equation looks like, and you could use this from a daily average perspective for any metric that you're looking to utilize. But this then helps you understand in this time period before the change, what was the daily average? After the change, what was the daily average? And we see here something happened, something bad happened, right? We had a higher daily average before than we do during when the incident happened, right? Now, if I collapse this table, you could see using the same table, the time period where something bad has happened and what things look like after the fix. And now you understand two things. One, the fix worked. And number two, the campaign's a good campaign because when you're comparing between these two, you have a higher daily average. So more people are coming, right? And here you could see the percentage increase. So by clicking on this time period and this one, you could create a visual. And I'll show it to you here now. If you hold down Command, if you're on a Mac, or Control if you're on a PC, and you click on this first tile and then on this one, right-click, visualize, summary change. That then shows this visual here. And then that's how you can see the percentage difference. And then likewise from here, if you hold down Command on both of these, and you have to do them in sequential order. I'll show what happens when you don't do it the right way. And you see a summary change, right? And you get your percentage like this. If you do it the wrong order or the wrong way, you can click here and then see that it does it backwards, right? So, and potentially not the way you want. And you don't have to close the visual over and over like I was just doing. You could just re-click, and then get your difference here. So, and then you dress it up so that the table is hidden. And then from a leadership perspective, this is now much more clear, right? You could change the label saying, hey, before time, during time, after time, and what those differences are. And so now you have a trend view up here, and you have a total impact view down here. And that tells a pretty complete story. Somebody can take a look at this and within just a couple seconds understand what happened and that the fix worked. Jeff, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything above and beyond this.
What's really nice also, and the thing is I get I don't like building new visualizations from scratch all the time either. So the thing is what you can do to speed up your creation of things as well. And this might sound basic to some people and maybe not to others. A lot of times what I'll do is, like, for instance, like he's got those first 6 there. What I will literally do is I'll just take like one of those and I'll literally duplicate it. Like, say I need like 3 or 4 more. I'll just duplicate them again.
Yeah.
Is somebody not seeing changes?
I was just responding. Are you folks able to see the changes? And
not seeing. So some person, they're not seeing things change on.
Is that the case for everybody? Are you seeing the screen
pause.
share?
I want to make sure that they're seeing stuff update on the presentation, because we're actually in Adobe Analytics. So I want to make sure we need to pause and refresh. Because that's where we're at. I want to make sure that
we're in the workspace. We're not actually in the slide or the deck right now.
Yeah, we're not in the slide deck.
Huh.
Is there anybody else raise their hand, whatever, if they're having issues?
Yeah, right now we're actively using the.
I can see you trying to visuals now tell us a clear story. Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure. All right.
Oh,
okay.
Well, that means that they're actually seeing this. Actually,
no, it was the workspace a second ago. I just watched you change it. Yeah. There we go.
Okay. All right. I just want to. Okay, he's seeing the workspace. Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right. So, but all I was saying was, this is a personal preference. I don't know if everybody, and like I said, this might come off like really basic, so you can just take it for, for grain of salt. But literally, I will just go ahead and I'll take like those, and I will literally duplicate duplicate it a whole bunch of times. I'll say copy, copy, copy on one of
Mhm.
those, unlock them all. And like, so if you're showing the like the table below, instead of doing the right click and doing like what you did, so in other words, show the data table, I'll go ahead and like copy like the after February 2nd. I'd just go ahead and I would like duplicate about three more times if
Yeah.
I had to do it against a couple more. And then so duplicate. I do like a couple more times,
And
and
unlock and
then
relabel them.
and then I just go ahead and I change the reference,
Yes. The same.
because I hate having to resize, recolor, and do all those things. I just go
Yes.
ahead and I reuse. It saves so much time, because then you just have to drag them into place and you're done.
Yep. Definitely.
And it sounds, I mean, and some people may be like, yeah, duh, whatever, but others are like, oh, hey, it's a nice little tip. There are so many things that you can do to just either increase your productivity or whatever. It's amazing how Adobe Analytics doesn't always come across as immediately intuitive
Mhm.
as to how to do certain things. And it's
Yes.
just these little, I don't want to say stupid, nuances. There you go. Little nuances that you just kind of pick up, when you're just in the course of your work, that just kind of helps you to just get through having to create stuff so that you can just keep on going. And it's
Yeah.
that kind of busy work,
Yeah.
in order to just get it done and move on to the next thing.
The quickest way to teach is, hey, right click is your friend,
Right click for the most part, but then
Mhm.
and right click does. I mean, right click gives you the ability to duplicate it, move on, whatever. So
Mhm.
right click definitely is your friend. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Frederick and Eric love to say that all the time.
Yes.
you
I
know,
think, to your point, Jeff, one of the biggest things that I have found that users just simply don't know is like copying and things like that. For
Mhm.
example, this entire report, let's say I had multiple incidences that I wanted to report on.
Yes.
Let's say I have in Q1 such an incident, Q2, Q3. I don't have to recreate this whole thing. I can copy the entire panel
Yep.
and duplicate the panel and then just replace these time ranges, and instantly instead of, so the first time you'll spend time constructing your panel. The
Yep.
second time all you're doing is replacing the segments, and boom, you've gone from what, 10, 20, 30 minutes, however long it took you to make the first panel, and now like literally 30 seconds to make the second one, right?
Exactly.
But one thing that is a challenge with Adobe is knowing the little nuances, like you're saying. Like, for example, there's no button here, and what I like to call the forehead of my table or the forehead of my display, there's just this blank area that you right click, and then you get all these options, right, of what you
Yes.
can do. But you won't know that without being either trained or going through tutorials. So
Yeah.
that's something in like lunch and learns and in office hours, I teach Adobe users within my organization how to do those things. But yeah, Adobe has a lot of power in regards to recycling. Like, recycle your efforts. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah. So I think we covered most of the core content that we were going to go over today. I think, Nick, we can potentially open it up for Q&A now, if you're open to that.
Yeah, it works for me. If anybody has any questions, comments, anything they want to see, please feel free to put that in the chat, and then we'll pull it up for these two to look over.
Yep. Oh, well, you said something about the title, the easy title stuff as well. I
Mhm.
wasn't sure if that was something else that you also wanted to quickly
Yeah.
within the graphs and that stuff. Like I said, I know that we're touching on things that might seem basic to some people, but it's amazing how it's some of the things are like duh moments when you when it's
Yeah.
like, oh, why didn't I think about that?
Yeah. So, like,
Uh,
here, to your point, Jeff, all the wordiness of what comes through, like,
yes, come
yeah,
through initially,
it's
yes.
chunky, right? Whereas
Mhm.
you could say before,
Yeah.
after,
It'll remember it too.
during.
If
Yeah.
you've done it once and then
Yeah.
you go back and you reselect the same thing, it'll remember it, which
Yeah,
is
exactly.
which is kind of nice.
Yes, especially if it's off of the same table, right? So
Yes,
like if you're
off the
using the
same
same
table.
table and you duplicate visuals, you could have a bar chart, you could have a donut. It will remember your designations here.
Yes,
Your
as long as you
labels here.
select the same data range or the same data range.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. And I often will use, labelings here to tell part of the story. I also lean to keeping it very, very simple in my terminology. Again, coming back to the cleanliness of your table and what you're showing here, I have been dinged more times for trying to portray too much than honestly to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Honestly, keeping it more simple tells a cleaner and better story. So.
Well, that and the other thing I was going to say is tie your titles to your business questions and requirements, and put your descriptions around those around your your descriptions as well, around answering some of those things as well. So the more that you can do that, and then the other thing, which is what I fought and worked with Jen Lasser to do quite a while back, was if you can bring illustrations and images into the top, in your descriptions that assist in also telling that story, do it, because it is available to you anywhere that you can help in your reporting by including imagery, demonstrate, where where in your site, or whatever it is that you're referring to. The better you can tell your data story, you are going to help your data consumer. So I always recommend it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely. And also from an audience perspective too. Right now, there's no filtering on this panel, but you could portray and drag in a drop down here showing, hey, your different audience types, like visits from natural search. I'm just going to grab these two, right? And I'm going to drop them in here, and we can say, hey, what is the impact of just mobile devices during this time period? And we can see that, there's a little bit of a different portrayal of this information. The behavior is potentially different. So these are definitely differences. Like for example, here for natural search,
there's a
aside from this,
right there.
and this is another case to show a before and after whatever happened here. But let's pretend this isn't here, right? We see here that for this group, very little impact, right? That's also a story, right? And you can give your stakeholders the control over the report. And the awesome thing with things like this drop down here is that if you use the share with anyone link, those drop downs remain available in the share with anyone's. Now, of course, be careful with who you share it with. Like, they're accessible to anybody, right? But that's something really powerful in the tool, right? Where you can give folks the ability to toggle change dates and simple things like that. And they don't even need to have prior Adobe experience to consume that information and to use it. So.
Okay.
Any questions? We can maybe start the Q&A modal thing.
Yeah, I'm not seeing in any of the chat right now.
Oh, I think that we can. Here, let me see. Restart.
Yeah, that's a good point. Minimizing the visualization. Yes, I would say that that's not a bad idea, because it actually improves the load time. Because that and then when they open it up, they just open up the visualizations. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, because I agree. I've done that where it'll go ahead. I've done that both ways, where I've had some things, open, and other times I'll have everything minimized, and then they can open whatever they need to in order to be able to look at it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. For example, using this again, this view here, if I was preparing this for especially folks who really don't know how the sausage is made from a data perspective, right?
Yes.
I would make sure all tables are tucked away.
Yes.
Make
Well,
sure.
you can minimize both visualizations and panels,
Yeah, exactly.
the whole panels, because it just really helps.
Yes.
So
yeah. So like here,
yeah.
for example, we're doing one.
Oh, I know what he's asking. Sometimes you can have too many visualizations in a page,
Yes.
and then it'll say, you know what, you can't do you
Oh
cannot.
yeah. Yep.
Yes, there you go. There
It's
we go.
42. Yeah.
So that's a very fair point. At one point, when I was talking with Ashok at Adobe, he was actually saying that they were working on removing those guardrails, and I think they. Well, I don't know.
I think there's a reason though.
Well, it comes down to processing time, really.
Yeah.
That's what it is. But I don't know if they're going to, if they've decided. So I don't know if they maybe changed their minds.
Mhm.
But at one point they were talking about removing those guardrails.
Yes.
At this particular point, they have not done that yet. And again, like I said, it's probably around the processing time in order to be able to do that with any
Yes.
one report. I mean, it's enough, regular processing time to open a regular report as it is. Because if you go ahead and do that performance report against any regular
Mhm.
report, you'll sometimes get a message
Yeah.
as it is.
There's a hack to this that I've used.
There you go.
Just to show Amit, if you're wanting to portray a story, but let's just say there's a lot, right? Like, and this is a function that you see that's also within Tableau, but it's actually available in Adobe if you're willing to go through a couple of steps here.
Mhm.
If you go into the descriptions here, and I'm not going to fully build this out here because I have to go Google, images and stuff, but you can Google images like an arrow, left, right arrow, or like a tile, left, right tile. And if you post that image into here by clicking this and posting the image here, you can make a left arrow appear and a right arrow appear. It just needs to be a publicly accessible image.
Yep.
And if you make those arrows, then you could hyperlink them. If you could hyperlink them, you could hyperlink to your different workspace stories. So you could say, hey, hit right arrow to go here, or even make the tile right about view, I don't know, same information, but form completes. I'm making stuff up, right? But
Yes.
you can toggle between your different stories within the same singular dashboard. And that way, for the visitor, they see just one thing, a dashboard that they're toggling between different panels or stories, But what's really happening is they're navigating between multiple different workspace projects that they could then be shared with. So
Yes.
you would use the share with anyone linkage in those images, and it will allow you to make a toggle between them. So
I used to actually create a full table of contents before you actually could. They started actually having a table of contents available on the left. Which, if the different icons that are on the far left there's a table of contents that you can now access for any of your available reports, and that's also when you do. It's the one up there it's that one. That's your table of contents for the actual report, and that's actually available as well for the share with anyone. However, what I would do is I actually did a table of contents at the very, very top of the report with as an overview of the stuff that was in there, and in that table of contents, I would also put links out to supplemental content.
Yeah.
In order to, because think about it, if you've got things like campaign tracking, marketing channel reporting, other content, the thing is as you're building out your reports, things you can get, like what he's talking about, content bloat.
Yeah.
So if you think about all of the different things that can make up a particular report, you can start breaking things out and going, okay, I can put this in one report, another one in another report, and put links to each piece. You can start understanding a better idea of how to create that story and plan things out and say, okay, now I know how to do this for anyone. If I've got multiple products I'm reporting on, multiple groups, then you have that hierarchy of reporting. And then you can say, okay, well, I've got this stuff that I'm sharing out to anyone. And then that way you can do share with anyone. But again, I always say when you do share with anyone, use caution, because that link is available to the public. So it is also always available until you change up the link.
Yes.
So somebody, and anyone in your organization, anybody that you know that you share that link with, could take that and post it out anywhere that they want to.
Yes.
So you need to then, once you put one of those links out there, you need to manage it, and you need to have a strategy and whatever you're going to do with it, because yeah, there you go, required off while sharing the link. So that's good. So, but yes, I always say use with caution.
Yeah.
Because once
Another
it's out there, you need to go ahead and change it up or whatever. So that's always good.
Another thing too to be aware is not sharing those links until you are very ready and done with the work in the report, because I have found that if you are in the middle or in progress and you share out and then you make changes and alter it, sometimes those links don't stay good. They're not, they don't work anymore, right? And then you have to re-communicate things out. So that's another thing to be aware of as well. Not an issue with sharing with folks who already have a profile and can get in, and you're sharing, in this way instead. But for share with anyone, that link is fragile. I guess is a way to put it. Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
Now, if it's a report that's just like a monthly report that the numbers are just like automatically, updating, not so much of a worry. But if you're like making a lot of manual changes to the design and things like that, then I would be a lot more worried and cautious.
So I think long story short, there's quite a bit that you can do to make the readability and the simplicity of your reports to be very quickly digestible, right? Like people can look and see and understand very quickly, and also you can path between those dashboards, and you could kind of create that holistic story. I don't know if I would call it a hack, but yeah, there are workarounds, right? So,
well, since you can't have multi-tabbed reporting, that's about the only way you can do it.
For now, yeah.
Well, now I kind of take that back a little bit. If you have ever seen the mobile dashboards,
yes,
mobile dashboards actually give you the ability to do nested sections within the mobile dashboard. So that might be something that you would that you could take a look at. I actually had the opportunity of doing a presentation at Adobe Summit with Jennifer Workmeister, and they had recently just made the update that you could nest additional sections within mobile dashboards. It's a really cool feature. It's really the only way that you can have what I would call tabbed reporting. It's not as robust as traditional reporting, but it is a really cool feature that if you have executives, leaders, and in your organization, I do recommend taking a look at it to see how you might leverage that kind of reporting if you're trying to do some things like that. If you're wanting to nest stuff within a specific report, that might be actually a separate idea for a follow-up deep dive around doing some of that stuff, because I think it was actually kind of a cool topic. We did something a while back actually in the user groups about that particular thing as well. But I think doing some more of the technical things on setup and reporting in there, I think that would be something. If the people in this audience think that would be useful, we could definitely get into that too.
Yeah. And going back to the image idea here. Oh
yes.
Actually,
it has to be. I believe it has to be a JPEG. It has to be a typical any one of those, and because it has to end in the image.
Any of these.
I've run into that. So it has to end in the actual file format and has to be publicly available.
Yeah.
A lot of this. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I was just going to say you'll want to control that yourself. Like you'll want to ensure that the information is accessible through your organization, styled the right way. But yeah, it makes it easy.
I've been using Imgur, but again, if you put something out there on a site like that, make sure that it's not something that you're worried about being out on a site like that. So don't put anything out there that you would consider, sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the stuff that I would put out there would be like screenshots of like pages that already existed on the public site. So I wasn't ever worried about anything that I put out there that being
sensitive material
or compromised. It was already something that was publicly available anyway. It was just something I was using for demonstration purposes and doing arrows or whatever. So
yeah. All right. Well, I will stop sharing.
Okay.
Maybe we can. I see that there's this QA thing, but I can't activate it myself. Or we could just do it in the chat if there's any questions. Oh, there we go.
I've never used that before, so I'm not exactly sure how it works. But from the chat, I didn't see any questions there, at least not yet. And that's fine if we don't have any questions at the moment. We can potentially even end this a few minutes earlier than we planned.
Yeah.
We'll give it a minute to see
if awkward silence here. Make people uncomfortable.
Pregnant pause, awkward silence, however you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Everybody's like, we know everything. We don't need to ask any questions.
Well, I can ask questions. Those of you who are here, generally speaking, do you find that this deep dive was too high level and you would like to see things that are a bit more complicated than what was shared today? Or do you feel like there was some things that you learned? That would be neat to know for anybody who's willing to say that.
Agreed. Yeah. Was this just like way too basic? We need more detail. We need
yeah.
Exactly. So
that'll help us understand
before we end.
Mm-hmm.
So exactly, this was our first deep dive. We were just trying to get a little bit of a feel. So that kind of question to you guys. What do you say?
Yeah, and if there's any specific topics that you would like dove into,
you will not hurt our feelings.
Yeah, no. Or people are eating lunch right now, and
they're just sitting there and they're like,
right.
They're like, what? Wait, you asked us a question? Oh, that's okay. Very good. Okay.
Oh, good. That's good to hear. Awesome. Are there any topics you guys want to dive into on a future topic or a future deep dive? That would help fuel the next one. We'd be very open to grabbing that.
Yeah, and too, if anything comes up, if anybody thinks of something at a later time that they'd like dove into, especially myself, I'm pretty available on LinkedIn. Send me an invite and a message, and we'll try to get that set up.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah,
quick trivia question: how many iterations of the Stitch have you seen in my background so far?
The next session, like I said, these are still pretty new. We actually have another session already scheduled, not officially, it's tentatively in August, and it'll be around Adobe Target, actually. So
there you go. Oh,
or not Target. I'm sorry, the launch, not Target, launch. So,
okay.
So more about implementation, tagging, and how to get started there. So
we have a couple of great ideas. Segmentation, definitely. Megan, Developer Console would be great because I think a lot of my role, anyways, is like QAing the work that was just implemented in launch. So
I know who to pull in on segmentation.
Yeah.
I know somebody who wrote a knowledge base, experience like knowledge base article on segmentation.
Yes, segmentation could be a really good dive.
Oh yeah, that's fun. I love doing segmentation.
Developer Console as well, because I mean, again,
Yeah.
some of us were only in analytics and we use the tool, and that somebody else is the one doing, you know, the architecture, the engineering, the testing, all that.
Yep.
However, if you're in smaller orgs, and I'm speaking from my own experience, sometimes you do all of it. You are part of the strategic, you know, voice on how things should be implemented. You're working with your architect. You're the one performing QA. And to Megan's point, how do you go into the developer console to check, not in Adobe Analytics, but to check live right then and there with your interact calls that the proper data is being captured?
Yep.
100%. That's a good a dive to go into, because event forwarding. Ooh, that's a good one too. There's all kinds of good ones. Yeah.
And not only that, I mean, not just the developer console, but literally, you know, you're in Chrome and you're looking at, you know, console and network, you know, and the network
Yes.
tab as well. So you're looking at those two things. You have to look at your data layer and understand,
And
okay,
not just using the
my data
debugger.
layer to yeah, exactly. So are you looking at Omnibug and all these different things to make sure your data is like, so that's a whole new different thing. Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Dev,
think
yep. Dev
I'm going
tools,
to take a screenshot for you, Nick, or do you have
all
this
that
already?
fun
There's
stuff.
he's now.
There we go.
No, it's all recorded too, so I can.
Oh
Come
yeah,
back
there
and
you
have
go.
it
Yeah,
whenever.
so you got
Yes.
it. Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
Event-based forwarding, that's a great one. It dives a little bit outside of your traditional analytics views, but definitely like we can go into launch and talk about how that's set up and things like CAPI and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Set up analytics using Web SDK. Yep. Can get into that and how data elements look different in an app-based implementation versus SDK, right? And what schemas and such look like. Sorry, not developer tools. I mean developer area. Oh yes. Fun things you could get into there is like the developer.io part where you can pull, like I often pull via an API into Google Sheets and have my Adobe data live within Google Sheets using the API, and it will refresh it automatically as well. So there's a few things we could get into there. The challenge I'm going to have is I don't know. I don't think I'll be able to screen share that because that's my own company's information. So we'll have to figure out how do we engineer a way to do this off of the Adobe dummy data. Adobe Analytics API that kind of merges
Same.
with
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets a little bit more
Yeah.
chunky. Yep.
Yeah. These are good ones. These are ones that, Sean, we need articles on too. If Sean's still here. But anyways, yeah. Awesome. He gave us good cannon fodder for the next few.
Yeah, I'm already taking notes of that. So
Cool.
all right. Well, we're getting close to time anyway. Let's see. I don't see any specific questions in here. By all means, like I said, any new ideas, any ideas come up, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and we'll see if we can get a deep dive set up.
All right.
But
awesome.
Other than that, thanks everybody for coming. Thank you, Damon and Jeff, for putting this on. I really appreciate it, and I think it was very valuable.
Yeah.
All righty.
Awesome.
And
Happy
thank
Friday,
you everybody
everyone.
for coming to the session.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Talk to you guys later. Bye.
All right.
Take care.